Welcome to the deep dive. Today, based on the sources you shared, we're jumping into how expats can actually find fun and travel in Shenzhen. Think of this as your cheat sheet to getting plugged in.
Exactly. We've looked at a bunch of stuff, personal stories, local tips, all to give you a clear picture of, how to actually enjoy Shenzhen.
Okay, so a lot of people arrive, and it feels a bit overwhelming, right? The language thing, maybe the city seems a bit standoffish at first. I've heard people say Shenzhen's boring. What actually changes that?
It's funny, that feeling is super common, but it flips pretty fast once you find the expat networks. The real key, honestly, is these social circles. It's like, imagine all your usual social media, Facebook, Insta, whatever, all crammed into just a few chat groups. It makes things very local, very intense sometimes.
And these networks in Shenzhen,
Hmm.
it's basically all WeChat groups, isn't it? Because the big Western platforms are, well, not really an option there.
Precisely. WeChat is king. These groups, they're usually invite only, become your go-to for, well, everything. Parties, event info, but also practical stuff like finding a lawyer or job hunting. There are groups for literally anything.
So finding restaurant deals, underground DJ nights, beach trips, big city festivals, it's all happening in these WeChat groups.
No.
But how do you even get in if they're invite only? Sounds tricky for newcomers.
Yeah, it can be. Usually it's word of mouth. You meet someone at like a language exchange or maybe through one of the international
All
organizations.
right, those organizations, they're still around.
Definitely. Their websites might look dead, but the real action, the RSVPs, it all happens on WeChat. So way more people show up than you'd think.
Okay, so groups for business folks, backpackers, language
Mm.
learners, worth checking out. And you mentioned they mix expats and locals.
Yeah, quite often, especially locals who've maybe, lived overseas or have international connections. It's a good mix.
Right, so people connect.
Yeah.
Where do they actually go then? Let's talk nightlife. Shenzhen doesn't have this, like, massive global party reputation, does it?
Yeah.
I heard rent prices and the city wanting a clean image makes it tough.
That's largely true. Coco Park, which was the main spot, is basically a construction site now. But there are still places people hang out casually outside convenience stores, grabbing beers. And breweries, modern ones, are popping up.
And bars?
You've got your loud dice game kind of local Chinese bars like Perry's or Rich Cat maybe. Then quieter, more expat-friendly places, though those tend to come and go a bit more.
Okay. And clubbing. You mentioned Coco Park is out temporarily.
Yeah, temporarily. There's kind of a replacement strip between Wang Ti Plaza and Central Walk. Then you have SeaWorld, which is more expat heavy, who high with these huge flashy clubs. Qigong Miao has a strip too, and then these massive mega clubs further out. But you usually need a local connection for those.
The sources mentioned Chinese clubbing is different tables, snacks, dice games. Not really out the dance floor.
Yeah, it's more about the social group at the table. Bottle service is big. But Shenzhen does have a decent cocktail scene too. They've got skilled mixologists, lots of dedicated cocktail and wine bars popping up. It follows the global trend there.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay, shifting away from the night.
Yeah.
What about city events? Weekends often have street fairs.
Yeah, exactly. Little food stalls, maybe a small stage with music, people selling trinkets, usually near malls or museums. More for families, generally free. You kind of just stumble upon them.
Different from the bigger planned stuff then.
Totally. The bigger events, you'll see flyers in WeChat. Hotels, museums, clubs host them for anniversaries, special guests, holidays. Those might cost you maybe up to $100 sometimes. Good networking, though, especially if you speak some Chinese.
And the sources hinted Shenzhen's regulations might be a bit looser, allowing for some spectacles.
Yeah, maybe things you wouldn't see elsewhere. Could be interesting, could be weird. Depends.
Huh. Okay. Now, for expats on the west side, Ninshan specifically, you mentioned these NSIC centers.
Right, the Nanshan International Service Centers. They're there to help expats settle in.
How so?
They offer seminars, practical advice on legal stuff like employee rights, even help navigating the hospital system, really useful. And they host events too, language corners, cooking, board games. You'll find them in Shiku, Taoyuan, places like that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Now, there was also this mention of government oversight, feeling watched, police, security, cameras everywhere. Does that affect the vibe?
It can, yeah. Some feel it makes the entertainment scene a bit stale, less spontaneous than maybe back home. You definitely notice the security presence.
Does that push things underground?
To an extent, you hear about more invite-only parties, maybe even out in places like Huizhou, and of course there's always Hong Kong.
Right, the Hong Kong option. Just op across the border for a different feel.
Exactly. If you want something more authentically gritty or just different, it's right there.
Okay, so let's wrap this deep dive. Shenzhen's social life hinges on WeChat. Nightlife is varied, from casual beers to fancy cocktails and specific clubbing styles. Events range from spontaneous street fairs to organized, pricier affairs. NSIC centers offer practical support. But there's this backdrop of oversight.
Right, which contrasts with the underground scene and
Exactly.
easy escape to Hong Kong.
So thinking about all this, the structured help, the WeChat-driven scene, the spontaneous bits, the government presence, and Hong Kong next door. What's the most enriching way for someone new to balance all that for their own learning and exploration? Something to think about.